Break effect, or
Effet de rupture.
is one of the neglected stat in Honkai Star Rail. Break effect is the introvert little brother that only stay in house and learnt the ancient ways of the cancel culture. He has the ability to debate, and insult you in a way that will make you depressed, dealing mental damage to those who stay on Twitter for too long. When you dealt damage with elements correspond to enemy's weakness, the toughness will go down, and when it dropped to 0, they will receive brain cancer, making them take 10% more damage in this state and suffer a weakness break. Weakness break will make enemies take break damage, and inflict a debuff, correspond to the element that you use to bully them with. This interaction scale with break effect. Basically, the more break effect stat you have, the more brain damage enemies will suffer, and it will improve the debuff on the enemies. To calculate the damage, you take the base damage and multiply with 1 plus break effect multiplier. Basically, the bigger you are, the bigger enemy is, the bigger the damage will be. Now, let's talk about break damage. Break damage is very simple. You see this math table? You only care about the first number here, and trash the rest in the trash bin. Now, for the interesting part. The debuff. There are 3 parts: the damage over time, the delay, and the freeze. First, damage over time. This group consists of fire, lightning, wind, and physical. Fire and lightning, when break, they will apply debuff, that will deal damage over time for 2 turns. Wind is a little different. When break, they will apply a certain amount of wind damage over time debuff, based on the type of the enemies are. They will apply 1 for the mob, and 3 for the boss. Physical is quite different to the others. When break, they will make the enemy bleed for 2 turns, which will deal damage over time based on the percent of the enemy health. This dot have a limit on how much bleed can deal damage based on your level and the enemy toughness. So you shouldn't build too much break effect on physical. Because of this, you don't need to build too much break effect and still deal good damage on the boss. Now to the second parts, the delay, which consists of the 2 laziest elements, not by the design, but because when they encounter a problem, they will forget about it and only give a shit when they are coming to collect the debt. The imaginary, like the name, they just imagine that the problems don't exist and wish that it won't come back to bite their asses. When break, they will delay enemy action by 30% time 1 plus break, and apply a debuff called imprisoned. While affected by imprisoned, the enemy speed will be reduced by 10%. This effect lasts for 1 turn. The quantum is like imaginary, but instead of sitting around not doing anything, they will try to throw rock at the problems until it go away. When break, the enemy will be delayed like imaginary, but also applied a debuff called entangled. While in this state, you can attack the enemy up to 5 times, stacking more of the debuff that deal damage based on how many rocks you throw at them. The third is freeze. When a character break the enemy toughness with ice damage, they will get frozen, skipping enemy turn by 1, but make their next turn advance forward by 50%. The ice damage they take when the enemy done watching frozen, is the only part of the debuff that scale with break effect. Joke aside, I put it separate from the delay group is because ice is the worst element to break the enemy weakness. Most people would argue that freeze is useful because they skip the enemy turn. That's true, but keep in mind that they will also advance forward by 50%, so you only skip half of their turn. But that's not all. Freeze can be applied by other skills like March Ult, Gepard skill, or Yanqing talent. I am not saying that freeze break is useless, but freeze has the worst scaling with break effect since the multiplier is the worst out of all the elements.
Bruh.
So, if you want to build break effect for your characters, I recommend Sampo and Su Shang. Sampo ult can increase the enemy damage taken with damage over time, and weakness break inflict wind dot. Su Shang is a bit different. Her kit allow her to build crit and work really well with break effect and her Eidolon 4 which increase 40% break effect, so you can build her with both crit damage and break effect. Another worthy mention is Physical MC, his kit also allow him to have synergy with break, gaining damage buff when you break enemy toughness bar with his bat. Unless you're like me, you can also build Asta as a meme, since Asta break the enemy toughness bar quite well, thanks to memories of the past, a light cone that increase weakness break for the Harmony character. And that's all for the video. Remember to subscribe and like the video, or I will send IRS agent to collect the tax. Have a nice day.
壊れちゃう